Hey gang, so we're going to be working with a bunch of different transformation tools this week. So as both kind of a demo and some practice with this that you'll turn in, you're going to be using some text and creating a custom shadow that you'll be using some transformations on. Okay, although a lot of the demos this week are working with text, you can of course use these transformation tools on any shapes. So this was kind of a practice file that I created, and I thought the phrase was fitting since what we're working with are different kinds of images. Okay, but feel free for your exercise to type whatever brief phrase or word you would like. So here's what we're going to do. Create a new page size document. Make sure it's horizontal since we'll be using text. And I'm going to just type the phrase that I already used, which is, what did I say? Text is art, period. But you can use whatever it is that you would like. Choose a bold font. So I think I was using Poplar. And stretch it fairly large so it fills up most of the page. Doesn't have to be all of it. Maybe a little less. Okay? And I'm going to kind of actually move this maybe to a corner, a little different than my original image that I had there. So it's kind of up in the corner, not completely, just a little off-centered. Okay? Make sure you make your text a different color than black. So I'm going to make it, let's say, a light orange, and we'll put an effect on it after we select it. So select it with your selection tool, effect 3D, extrude and bevel. And this is going to give it that dimensional effect that we had a minute ago. And I think that I need these bottom two dimensions to be 0. So it's straight, and then you can choose how much of the top you want to see. For my purposes, this is okay. If you're not seeing all these options in your effects panel, it might be that you need to click this More Options button. So click that. We're going to put the light straight behind it so the face is kind of dark. The reason I asked you to make the text something other than black is this would all look like a black blob otherwise, because it doesn't really matter how you light black. It doesn't look lighter. Okay. If you want to change the shading color from black, you can. I'm going to just leave it. My shadow is going to be black. So this looks pretty good. I'll say OK. And I'm going to label this layer text. I'm going to make another layer, move it underneath. I'll call this shadow. And I'm going to select my text, edit copy, and deselect, make my shadow active, and paste in back. Edit, paste in back. So Command B. Okay? In your appearance palette, oops, go ahead and delete the 3D extrude effect from the copy. It won't look like you've done anything so far. And we're going to use some of these transformation tools. So you'll see they're found kind of in these 3 slots. There's the Scale, Shear, and Reshape tool. There's the Rotate and Reflect tool. And there's a whole bunch of tools here that we're going to play with. Okay. You also have the Free Transform tool, which we will also use. So first I'm going to use the Reflect tool. And notice with most of these you have kind of a little blue dot that appears at the center. You can click and move that. That's saying where am I transforming this from? And I'm just going to move it straight down to the baseline here. And then I'm going to click and drag this around. You can even hold Shift to keep it straight until it's directly under the text that we made. So now I already have sort of a shadow or a reflection happening. Okay, now I'm going to perhaps use, I guess, my shear tool a little bit, and I'm going to leave the transformation in the same spot, and I'm going to just tilt this a little so it looks like maybe the light's at an angle, and I can even adjust my lighting on my 3D effect if I'd like to reflect this angle. Okay. Then I'm going to use my Free Transform tool, and you'll see there's some different options that appear when you choose Free Transform. I'm going to choose this one right here, which is Perspective Distort. And before this will work quite accurately, I found that I need to expand this shape. So let me just select it, say Object, Expand. So these are a bunch of different letters then, and in here you'll see it's a group. Okay, and let's go ahead and go back to our free transform, choose perspective, move this transformation right to the baseline, try to stay pretty much in the center where it was, and just click on the edges and pull them. You'll see when I pull it out, it's stretching the right side as well. I don't know if you could see that. So it's making it bigger going in both directions. It's giving this perspective, right? So it's getting bigger as if this is actually on the ground. Okay? Now, so we did shear, we did perspective, we did reflect. Now we're going to work with these individual letters a little more with the remaining warp tools that you have, so that you can start to experiment with them. And this is a great phrase to use if you guys can't think of your own, just because you're going to make the shadow look a little different than the actual object. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, ooh, I didn't mean to do that. Well, that's okay. I attached this to the side by accident. But the width tool we'll get to in a minute. You need to do that with lines. But you can pick individual shapes to do these with. If there's any options, you double click on them. You'll see that if I change the intensity for one of them, the intensity changes for all of them. And doing it kind of low is good because it will make the tool operate a little slower. Otherwise it can be very quickly. But you can experiment with the other options for these. Now these all have brushes, so if you hold Option and click and drag up and right, the brush gets bigger, down and left it gets smaller. If you also hold Shift, while you do that, it remains a circle. Okay, so this is the reshape tool, and this one is kind of just what it sounds. This one just kind of pushes shapes around. So maybe actually for this one I'll have the intensity a little higher. Let's see how this might be too much, but see, this one's really working this thing like Play-Doh. And I guess I still want this to be a recognizable T, but you could even think of it as starting to make some other shape. Or if you just wiggle out, if you want to do it something narrative, feel free. I haven't thought it out enough to think of what this would be. I'm just kind of showing you how the tool works. Okay, so do something that you kind of like the appearance of. Okay, kind of like a wrinkled up T. Okay, and you don't have to even do it with the same letter, but you want to use one of these with every letter. Okay, the next one, this one's the twirl tool. This one I am going to slow down. That's a 10%. And I'm going to zoom in order to do it. So this one, same thing with brush size. If I click and drag or just click on it, you'll see it rotates counterclockwise. The longer I hold it, the more it rotates. If I start clicking on it and I hold Option or Alt, it will switch directions. Now this has to be after I have already started working with this tool. Otherwise, remember, it will be brush size. Okay, and you can also click and drag with it, right, like that. And it will start doing funky things. In fact, you can do some really cool abstract stuff with the twirl tool. Where is it? I was playing with, making some kind of background for this song, Fly Me to the Moon. So if you've seen things like that before, it's not as difficult as people make it out to be. Okay. Although it does look very cool. You get this kind of lava lamp kind of effect. Okay? And so I'm just going to play with these for each of these. Now this one is the pucker tool. And pucker will just kind of like it sounds, the anchors that are touching it, it's sort of, oops, so I'm trying not to affect my T too, if I can help it. Anyway, something like that. I kind of like it, just with it sucked in at the middle.